The battlefield was silent. Smoke rose from broken ships and burned out vehicles. Bodies, alien and human, lay scattered across the ruined valley. Jackson, a lone human soldier, limped through the debris, holding his side where he was bleeding. His squad was gone. He had no comms, no backup, no direction. Just silence and pain. He wasn't supposed to survive. As he passed a wrecked alien transport, he heard something, a small sound, like a whimper. Jackson stopped, eyes narrowing. He slowly raised his weapon and stepped toward the sound. Then he saw her. She was hiding under a broken piece of armor plating. An alien girl, young, injured, and terrified. Her skin was a pale violet, marked with tribal patterns. Her long white hair was tangled and dirty. She clutched a strange curved sword tightly to her chest. Her eyes locked onto Jackson. She didn't scream. She didn't move. She just stared. "I'm not gonna hurt you," Jackson said, slowly lowering his weapon. "Are you hurt?" She didn't answer. Instead, her body trembled and her grip on the sword tightened. Suddenly, a roar echoed across the ruins. 3 large aliens appeared from behind a crashed gunship, warriors, armed and angry. Their armor was painted red, their faces twisted. With rage, they spotted the girl. "There she is!" One of them shouted in a deep voice. "The traitor's daughter!" They didn't even look at Jackson. The girl screamed, without thinking. Jackson rushed in front of her and raised his weapon, but it was out of power. The enemies were already charging. In panic, Jackson grabbed the curved sword from the girl's hands and swung. The blade lit up, glowing with strange blue light. One of the aliens stopped mid-charge. His eyes widened in horror. "He's holding the blade of Bond." "The what?" Jackson muttered before he could think. The sword moved in his hands as if it had a mind of its own. His body reacted faster than ever before. He dodged, spun, and slashed. One warrior went down screaming. Another dropped his weapon and ran. The last hesitated, then fled. Silence returned. Jackson stood, breathing hard, staring at the glowing sword. The girl behind him was silent too. Then softly she said, "You touched it." Jackson turned to face her. "I had no choice. They were going to kill you." "You don't understand," she whispered. Her voice shook. "That blade belongs to my clan. Only the chosen may hold it." Jackson looked down at the sword in his hands. "It's just a sword," he said. "No," she said, crawling toward him on weak arms. "It is the Bond blade. By taking it, by using it to protect me, you made a sacred vow." "What kind of vow?" She looked up at him with wide, glassy eyes. "You must marry me." Jackson blinked. "What?" "You used the sword to defend the heir of my clan. That is our oldest law. By doing so, you accepted the bond, and now you are my mate." Jackson dropped the sword like it was on fire. "I didn't know. I was just trying to help." "It doesn't matter," she said. "The sword knows. The clan will know." Jackson stared at her, speechless. This had to be a mistake. He had just saved a life. He didn't want to marry anyone, especially not someone from a different species, on a different world, in the middle of a war. Then, footsteps. More aliens appeared, this time not enemies. They wore silver armor and had the same tribal markings as the girl. One of them, older and taller, stepped forward and saw the glowing sword on the ground. He looked at Jackson. "Human," the elder said. "You held the bond blade." Yeah. I mean, just to protect her, that's all." The elder nodded slowly. "Then you are now her chosen mate," he said with a strange smile. "You will come with us." Jackson laughed nervously. No, you don't understand." 2 guards grabbed his arms. "You will be treated with honor," the elder continued. "But you have taken a sacred role now. You have no choice." The girl looked at him with sorrow in her eyes. "I'm sorry. I didn't want this either." As the group led Jackson away, he looked back at the sword lying on the ground, still. Glowing dot, it wasn't just a weapon dot, it was a promise. And Jackson had no idea what kind of future he had just walked into. Jackson opened his eyes slowly. Warm cloth covered his chest. Strange smells filled the air, spices, oils, herbs. He wasn't on the battlefield anymore. He wasn't even on the same planet. Was he? The ceiling above him was made of soft glowing vines. Alien architecture. He was lying on a smooth bed. Inside what looked like a tent made of crystal and cloth. He sat up and winced. His ribs still hurt. "You're awake," said a soft voice. Jackson turned his head and saw her Lisha. She stood at the edge of the room, arms crossed, dressed in a long ceremonial robe that shimmered like silver water. Her pale violet skin looked cleaner now, and her hair had been braided. But her eyes still held the same confusion, the same sadness. "Where am I?" Jackson asked. "In my people's sacred healing tent," she replied. "You passed out after the fight," Jackson sighed. "Good, then it was just a dream." The sword, the bonding, the marriage stuff, none of it was real. Lisha said nothing. She just looked down. Then the tent's flap opened and 3 alien women walked in. All wore shining robes. All bowed to Jackson. "The bonded one has risen," one of them said with a smile. Jackson blinked. "The what?" "The blade chose you." "The bond is complete," another one added. Lisha looked embarrassed. "I tried to stop them. But the ceremony is already being prepared. Tonight is the bonding night." Jackson stood up too quickly. "Whoa, wait. I'm not marrying anyone. I didn't ask for this." "You wielded the blade of vow," one priestess said gently. "The law is older than the stars. To protect the daughter of the clan with that sword means you become her protector. Her husband, her mate." "I didn't know that," Jackson said. "I just wanted to help her." "And that's why the blade chose you," the woman said, with a strange warmth in her eyes. "You risked yourself with no reward. Our warriors kill for glory. You fought to protect. That is the highest honor." Jackson turned to Lisha. "Can't we cancel it?" Lisha bit her lip. "No, the clan saw. The sword glowed for you. To walk away now would mean dishonor, for me, for all of us." Jackson fell back onto the bed. "This is insane." "You'll be treated like royalty," one priestess offered, as if that would help. "You will be her shield, her partner, her chosen." He rubbed his face. "What if I say no?" They all looked at him. One priestess whispered, "Then the clan may see her as unworthy. They may punish her." Jackson's hands froze. "Punish her?" He looked up. "She'd suffer because of me?" Lisha nodded slowly. "They'd think I tried to trick you. They might remove me from the clan, or worse." A heavy silence fell over the room. Jackson stared at the floor. His heart beat faster, not from fear, but from guilt. He didn't mean to start all this. But if backing out meant she'd be hurt, that wasn't an option. "Fine," he finally said. "I'll go through with it." Lisha looked up, surprised. "You will?" "Yeah," Jackson said with a sigh. "But not because of some ancient sword. Because I'm not the kind of man who lets others pay for my mistakes." She gave a tiny nod, then whispered, "Thank you." But in her eyes there was something else, something deeper. Like hope and fear mixed together. Later that evening, drums echoed through the valley. 1,000 clan members gathered outside under the twin moons. Fires danced in great circles. The blade of vow was placed on a glowing altar. Jackson stood beside it, dressed in ceremonial armor. He looked sharp, calm on the outside, while his heart pounded like a war drum inside. Lisha walked toward him, slow and graceful, wearing a flowing gown with the symbols of her clan. Everyone bowed. An elder stepped forward and spoke in a deep, ancient tongue. Jackson didn't understand the words, but when the elder handed him the sword again, he froze. The moment his hand touched the hilt, the blade glowed again, brighter than before. Gasps filled the air. "The sword accepts him." The elder said, He is her bonded, her protector, her husband. The crowd cheered. Lisha stepped closer, eyes wide with emotion. Jackson didn't know what to say. He only knew one thing: his life was never going to be the same again. The cheers had faded. Now came the silence, not the peaceful kind, but the heavy, watching kind. Like eyes waiting for a mistake, Jackson sat at a long ceremonial table, food untouched before him. Roasted alien meats, glowing fruits, and sweet-smelling. Drinks filled the feast, but his appetite was gone. Across the table, warriors from Lisha's clan whispered. Some looked at him with disgust, others with disbelief. One even stared at him like he was a bug. Lisha sat beside Jackson, calm on the outside, but her hands shook slightly under the table. She saw the cold stares too. She knew what they meant. This was a mistake, muttered a tall warrior with black markings on his neck. A human? Bonded by our blade? He's unworthy, another hissed. Weak blood, no clan, no glory. They weren't hiding their voices. Jackson leaned toward Lisha and whispered, "Are they always this friendly?" She gave a soft laugh, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. "You must understand," she said gently. "Our people value strength, honor. Many thought I would bond with a warrior of the clan. A champion, not an outsider," Jackson sighed. "Great. So I saved your life, and now they hate me for it?" "No," she said quietly. "They fear you." That made him pause. "Fear me? Why?" Lisha leaned closer. "Because the blade chose you. And it has never chosen someone outside the bloodline, ever. You changed a sacred pattern." He looked around again. Warriors with medals, elders with proud eyes, soldiers with scars and blades, and then him, a human with a patched uniform, mismatched boots, and a bandaged arm. Yeah, they probably saw him as a joke. Just then, a loud voice echoed across the hall. "I challenge the outsider." Gasps filled the room. Jackson looked up. The tall warrior with black neck markings stepped forward, muscles like rocks, eyes sharp with anger. "I am Varric, son of the High Blade," he said. "I challenge you, human, to a trial of worth. Prove you deserve our bond, or leave this place in shame." Jackson stood up slowly. "I didn't come here for a fight." "But you accepted the bond," Varric snapped. "You hold the title of protector. Then protect her. Show us you can." The room was dead silent. Lysa stood, panic in her voice. "Varric, no. This is not our way." But the elder at the end of the table raised his hand. "Let the blade speak once more." Jackson looked at Lisha. "I don't want to hurt anyone." She touched his hand. "Then fight with your heart, not your hate." Minutes later, the trial ring was a circle of polished stone, glowing with clan symbols. Jackson stepped in, wearing only simple armor and carrying a wooden training sword. Varric entered shirtless, cracking his knuckles and smiling like a beast ready to tear prey. "I will not go easy on you," he warned. "Wouldn't expect you to," Jackson replied. The horn blew. Varric charged like a bull. His first strike nearly shattered Jackson's sword. The second threw him back onto the stone. Cheers rang out from the watching warriors. Jackson groaned, stood, and blocked the next blow just in time. He wasn't faster, he wasn't stronger, but he was human. And humans knew how to fight smart. Varric swung hard, wild with rage. Jackson ducked, rolled, and struck him in the ribs. The crowd fell quiet. Varric roared and rushed again, but Jackson dodged, again and again, making the big alien waste his energy. 5 minutes later, Varric's breath was heavy, his swing slower. And then, Jackson stepped in not to strike, but to throw his weapon aside. "I don't need to win by hurting you," he said. "I already won when I saved her." Varric froze. So did the crowd. Jackson walked to the center and stood with open arms. "You want me gone? Fine, but I won't fight like an animal to earn your approval. I'll protect her with or without it." The elder slowly stood. "The blade chooses not only strength," he said loudly. "It chooses spirit." He looked around. "Today, the human has shown more heart than most of our warriors." Varric dropped his sword and stepped back. Leisha ran. To Jackson, her eyes full of tears. "You didn't just survive. You earned their silence." Jackson gave a weak smile. "Let's hope that's a good thing." Leisha didn't speak the entire walk back to her tent. Jackson noticed. Every time he glanced at her, she looked away. Her hands were clenched and her steps were stiff, like she was holding something in. The trial was over. He didn't lose. But he hadn't really won either. The clan didn't cheer. They didn't welcome him. They just watched, silent, distant. He opened the flap to the tent and let her enter first. She walked inside without a word. Jackson followed and sat down. The tent felt colder tonight. The air was thick with unspoken feelings. Finally he said, "You mad at me?" She turned her back to him. "No, you're quiet." "I'm thinking." "About what?" She stood still. Then she spoke slowly. "You showed more honor than anyone tonight. You refused to fight dirty. You risked being beaten, humiliated. And still, you never raised your weapon to harm. You stood in the center of that ring and gave them a choice." She turned around. Her eyes glistened, and still, they treated you like nothing. Jackson nodded. "It's fine. I didn't come here to impress them. I came because I didn't want you to get hurt." Leisha walked closer, voice trembling. "But they should respect you. They saw what you did. They know what kind of man you are. And yet..." She dropped to her knees beside him, her face suddenly twisting in pain. "They still want you gone." Jackson reached for her hand. "They'll come around." She shook her head. "No, you don't understand. Varric wasn't just any warrior. He was supposed to be my chosen mate. My family promised me to him since I was a child." Jackson froze. "Wait, what?" Leisha nodded slowly. "That trial wasn't just about you proving yourself. It was his last chance to take me back, and you stopped it." She pulled away gently and stood again. "And now I have no more family support. They blame me for choosing you." Jackson stood too, pain rising in his chest. "You didn't choose me. The blade did." "Yes," she whispered. "But I didn't fight it either." She turned away again, wiping her eyes. "I could have told them it was a mistake, that you forced the blade. But I didn't. I let it happen. I let the bond form. I wanted to see where it could go." She looked over her shoulder. "I thought, maybe, just maybe, I could have someone who sees me not as a trophy, not as a tool, but as a person." Silence filled the tent. Jackson stepped forward slowly. "Leisha, is that what they always saw you as?" She nodded. "Since I was young, my father was chief before he was killed. I became the key to power. Whoever married me would lead the warriors." Jackson's fists clenched. "That's messed up." She laughed softly, sadly. "That's tradition." He stepped closer. "You're not a prize, Leisha. You're brave. You're smart. And you've got more strength in your heart than half those warriors." She met his eyes. Her voice broke. "Then why do I feel so weak right now?" Jackson did the only thing he could. He held her. At first, she didn't move. But then her head lowered, her hands clutched his shirt, and the tears came fast, silent, shaking, unstoppable. He let her cry. No words, no promises. Just warmth in the cold. Outside, the clan slept. Inside, an alien girl wept into the arms of a man who never wanted to be her husband, but had become something far more powerful. Her protector. Her peace. She collapsed during breakfast. One moment, Leisha was laughing softly at one of Jackson's awkward earth jokes. The next, her body trembled, her hands dropped her cup, and she fell face first into his lap, unconscious. "Leisha?" Jackson caught her before she hit the ground. Her skin felt cold, her breathing shallow. "Help!" he shouted. "Someone help her!" 2 guards rushed in and carried her to the healer's tent. Jackson followed, heart pounding like thunder in his chest. He hadn't felt fear like this since the war. But this wasn't a battlefield. This was worse. This was personal. Hours passed. Jackson sat outside the healer's tent, hands covered in her spilled tea. His mind kept replaying the moment, how quickly she faded, how something felt wrong before it even happened. Finally, the healer came out. Her face was grim. She was poisoned. She said. Jackson stood up so fast the chair flipped. Poisoned? By who? The healer lowered her voice. It was slow working, hidden in her drink. The root used is ancient, rare, almost forgotten. Only someone from the inner circle would know how to find it. Is she going to make it? She's stable, but weak. She needs rest and protection. Jackson's jaw tightened. She was in the safest place in the entire camp. The healer nodded, which means the danger is inside. That night, Jackson stood by her bedside. Lisha slept, her breaths shallow. Her once bright skin had dulled, her lips pale. She looked peaceful and fragile. He clenched his fists and whispered, "I won't let them hurt you again." A soft voice behind him said, "You should not stay here." Jackson turned sharply. A young warrior stood in the doorway, eyes shifting side to side. "Why?" Jackson asked. "There are those in the clan who believe your bond to her is fake, that you forced the blade. They say you are weakening her." "That's a lie," Jackson growled. The warrior stepped closer. "I believe you, but not all do. And someone has already tried to end her life. They will try again. Do you know who it was?" The warrior paused, then slipped a folded cloth into Jackson's hand. "I found this message behind the temple. I wasn't supposed to see it." Jackson opened it. The writing was in sharp alien script, but someone had scribbled a translation beneath it in rough English. "The human must leave, or she dies next time." The next morning, Jackson stood before the clan's elders. He held up the note. "Someone in this clan poisoned her," he said. "They tried to kill your future leader, and now they're threatening her again." The elders stared at him. One old male narrowed his eyes. "Do you have proof of who did it?" "No," Jackson admitted. "But I know this. If she was targeted, it had to be someone close, someone trusted, someone with access to her tent." Murmurs broke out among the council. Another elder scoffed. "You come here outsider, and now our own bleed because of your presence." "I didn't bring this poison," Jackson snapped. "I brought protection." "Then protect her," the old one said. "Leave. If your presence brings danger, remove it." Lisha's voice rang out from behind. "If he goes, I go." Everyone turned. Lisha stood at the edge of the room, pale and shaking, but tall and fierce. "You all claim to love this clan," she said. "Yet you let lies and jealousy rot it from within." She walked slowly to Jackson and took his hand. "This man risked his life for me. He refused to kill for pride. And now he stays by my side when even my family hides." She looked at the elders, eyes full of fire. "If he leaves, I will never return." Silence. Then the elder grunted. "So be it. But understand any further danger will fall on both your heads." Jackson met Lisha's eyes. "We'll handle it," he said quietly. She nodded, but they both knew. The real enemy was still hidden in the shadows. Watching, waiting, planning the next strike. The guards tried to stop him, but Jackson had had enough. He pushed through them like a storm. His fists were clenched, his jaw locked, and his eyes burned with fury. The threat, the poisoning, the lies, he could take it all. But Lisha? Seeing her weak in that bed? Hearing her whisper in pain last night? That was his breaking point. He slammed open the temple doors. The clan council sat inside, calm and proud, as if nothing had happened. But Jackson wasn't calm. And today, he wasn't going to stay silent. "You call yourselves leaders?" he shouted. Someone tried to murder Lisha, and you're still sitting here doing nothing? The elders looked up, surprised by his sudden entrance, but not alarmed. One of them, the same old man who had doubted him from the beginning, leaned forward. You forget your place, outsider. No, Jackson said, walking straight to the center. You forgot yours. The room grew still. He dropped the poisoned note on the floor for all to see. That was slipped into her tent. After the first attempt failed, murmurs started. He pointed to one of the guards near the back. And you were on duty that night. Where were you when someone entered her tent? The guard stiffened but didn't speak. Jackson turned to the council again. Someone inside this clan wants her dead, and they want me gone. But instead of investigating, you sit in silence. You were not born here, one of the female elders said coldly. You do not understand how we settle matters. Jackson stepped forward, face to face with her. I don't care how you do things. I care that someone tried to kill the woman He stopped. The room froze. Jackson blinked, surprised by the words that almost left his mouth. The woman What? The woman I care about. The elder raised an eyebrow. Finish your sentence, human. Jackson stepped back. His anger remained, but now something else sat beside it. Fear. No, realization. She's more than a bond, he said quietly. More than a rule or a sword. She's someone who deserves to live free, and if you can't protect her. He turned to leave. Then I will. That night, Jackson stood guard outside Lisha's tent himself, no more trusting anyone else. He kept a weapon in hand and scanned every shadow. Every noise made him tense. He hadn't slept in 2 days, but his eyes stayed sharp. Inside, Lisha stirred. She stepped out quietly and walked over to him. You haven't rested. I'm fine, he replied, without looking at her. She sat beside him. You confronted the council today. Jackson finally looked at her. They weren't going to do anything. I know, she said softly. But it was brave, he sighed. It was stupid. No, she said, it was honorable. They sat in silence for a moment. The stars above were soft tonight, and the camp was strangely quiet. Too quiet. Do you regret picking up that sword? She asked. Jackson was silent. Then he said, No, I just wish I knew what it would cost. It cost me everything, Lisha whispered. My family, my friends. My future. He turned to her. And if you could undo it, would you? She met his eyes. There was sadness in them. But something warmer too. No, she whispered. Then the silence shattered. A scream came from the healer's tent. Jackson jumped to his feet. Lisha followed behind him. They ran toward the sound, and when they arrived, they found the healer on the floor barely breathing. Poison gas, she coughed. They meant for you. Jackson looked around and saw the small container rolling in the corner. Still hissing, he covered his mouth and kicked it out of the tent. Lisha helped lift the healer. Others ran over. It was clear now. This wasn't just about scaring them anymore. The enemy had struck again, and this time, they were ready to kill anyone close to the truth. Later that night, Jackson sat beside Lisha, both of them quiet. They're not going to stop, he said. Not until one of us is gone. Lisha looked at him. Then we fight back, but not with blades. Jackson frowned. Then how? She looked toward the moon. With truth. And Jackson realized this wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about changing a clan that was rotting from the inside, and it had to start with them. The sky burned red at dawn. Not from the sun, but from fire. Smoke curled above the western ridge of the camp, and loud alarms echoed through the valley. Warriors ran, weapons drawn. Elders shouted. Panic spread fast. Jackson was already moving. He didn't wait for orders. He didn't need permission. Lisha was still asleep inside the tent, and that meant she was in danger. He burst inside. Wake up, he said, voice calm but sharp. We're under attack. Lisha blinked and sat up quickly. What? Who is it? I don't know, Jackson. Saad handing her a small blade. But I bet it's the same people who poisoned you. This time, they're coming with fire. A sudden explosion outside shook the ground. Lysa stood, now fully alert. The inner circle. They've made their move. They're trying to finish the job, Jackson said. And this time, they're not hiding. Outside the tent, the enemy had revealed themselves. It wasn't an outside force. It was warriors from within, the same ones who had smiled during ceremonies. The same ones who clapped during the bond ritual. Now they carried stolen weapons and wore no clan markings. They had turned on their own people and leading them was Varuk. His eyes locked on Jackson from across the fire-lit courtyard. This ends now, Varuk shouted, pointing his blade. The outsider dies, and with him, this false bond. The crowd watched, frozen. No one moved to help. No one stepped in to stop it, until Lysa did. She stepped between Jackson and Varuk. You dare raise your sword against the one the blade chose? She shouted. You dishonor everything our clan once stood for. Varuk laughed. The blade was tricked. So were we. Step aside, Lysa. You are no longer a daughter of honor. Jackson stepped forward, slowly, and drew the sacred sword. The blade of vow. Its edge shimmered with light. I didn't come here to lead your people, he said. I didn't come to take your throne, your pride, or your name. I only ever tried to protect her. He raised the sword high. But now, I protect this clan from men like you. The duel began. Jackson wasn't the strongest. Varuk towered. Over him, a trained killer with years of battle behind his fists. But Jackson had something Varuk didn single quotes d.purpose. Varuk fought to destroy. Jackson fought to protect. Blow after blow, they clashed. Sparks flew. The clan circled around them, silent, holding their breath. The fire crackled, the wind screamed, but no one dared interrupt. Lysa watched with tears in her eyes, whispering prayers to every star above. Jackson bled. He stumbled, but he didn't fall. And when Varuk lifted his blade for the final strike, Jackson spun low using the same move he used in the trial, and knocked the weapon from his hand. Varuk crashed to the ground. Jackson stood over him, breathing hard. The blade of vow pointed to the sky. The elders finally stood. It is finished. One. Syed, the traitor has fallen. The others nodded. The armed rebels began dropping their weapons. One by one, they surrendered. Jackson dropped the sword. I don't want your titles. I don't want your crown. I just want peace. The elder stepped forward, smiling gently. Then you have earned something greater, he said. You have earned our respect. Later, the fires had died down. The rebels were imprisoned. The clan had gathered under the twin moons once again. This time, no one looked at Jackson like a stranger. They looked at him like a warrior, like one of their own. Lysa stood beside him on the high stone platform, holding his hand tightly. They finally see, she whispered. They don't just see, Jackson replied. They believe. She turned to him, her eyes soft now. You were bonded by law, but you stayed by heart. Jackson smiled. And you were supposed to be a duty, but you became something more. He reached out and gently touched her face. I didn't plan any of this, he said. But if I had to do it again, I'd still pick up that sword. Lysa leaned her forehead against his, and I'd still let you. The stars shone brighter that night, not for war, not for power, but for a bond made by accident and sealed by choice.